Modern life solved convenience and accidentally destroyed enjoyment. That's why people have more comfort than ever, but less emotional connection to life. There's a strange thing happening to people with comfortable lives right now. Nothing feels terrible, but nothing fully feels good either. You order your favorite food. It arrives fast. You open Netflix. You unlock your phone for 1 second, and suddenly 2 hours disappear. But here's the weird part. You still don't feel relaxed. Most people never stop to question that. They just assume they need a better weekend, a better vacation, a better restaurant, a better version of life. But this is where it gets dangerous. The problem is usually not your life. It's your nervous system. Because modern life quietly trained people to consume experiences without emotionally entering them. And once that starts happening, everything begins feeling weaker. Think about this carefully. Remember your first real salary dinner? You actually felt it. The lights, the food, the excitement, the conversation. Now, you can sit in a beautiful restaurant and mentally be somewhere else the entire time. Checking messages, looking at notifications, taking photos, thinking about work tomorrow. Your body is there. Your attention isn't. And attention is what creates emotional depth. That changes everything. This is why expensive lives often start feeling emotionally flat. Not because comfort is bad, but because overstimulation destroys contrast. When your brain constantly jumps between videos, music, notifications, food, apps, content, shopping, background noise, nothing gets enough silence to emotionally land. And most people never notice this happening in real time. Watch how modern evenings work now. You come home tired. Food delivery gets ordered before you even think. Netflix starts automatically. Phone opens automatically. Instagram, Reels, messages, YouTube, and somewhere in the middle of all that stimulation, your brain quietly stops processing any of it deeply. That's why people finish entire weekends and still feel mentally unfinished. Not because they did too little, because they never fully arrived inside anything. And this is where people misunderstand their own emotions. They think, I'm bored, but often they're overstimulated. Huge difference. Boredom says, I need something meaningful. Overstimulation says, I can no longer feel normal levels of meaning. That's much more dangerous. Because now the brain constantly searches for stronger hits. Better food, more scrolling, more content, more plans, more noise. And slowly, simple experiences stop working emotionally. This is why something strange happens as people get older. Their lives improve, but their emotional response weakens. Not because adulthood ruined happiness, because uninterrupted attention disappeared. Look at what happens during vacations now. People spend months planning trips. Flights booked, hotels booked, perfect photos saved on Pinterest. Then the trip finally happens, and half the experience becomes recording, posting, checking reactions, updating stories, replying to messages. The moment gets converted into content before it gets emotionally processed. And this is where people miss something important. Experiences are not felt through price. They are felt through presence. That's why cheap moments used to feel bigger. Not because life was magically deeper back then. Because your attention was less fragmented. You could sit somewhere simple and actually emotionally absorb the moment. Now people sit in beautiful places, while mentally consuming 5 other things at the same time. And this creates a very specific kind of emptiness. Not sadness, not depression, emotional thinness. That's the modern feeling nobody knows how to describe. And once you notice it, you start seeing it everywhere. Watch people at cafes. Too expensive coffees. Nice environment. Perfect lighting. Both people checking phones every few minutes. Nobody fully inside the conversation. Watch people during concerts. Thousands of phones in the air. Recording the moment instead of feeling it. Watch yourself opening online deliveries. The anticipation feels exciting. The package arrives. You open it. And emotionally, the feeling disappears almost immediately. That is not because you bought the wrong thing. It's because your nervous system adapted to constant novelty. And this is where the real trap begins. People try solving emotional numbness with more stimulation, more purchases, more entertainment, more experiences, more scrolling. But overstimulation cannot cure overstimulation. It usually deepens it. That's why modern comfort often creates strange exhaustion. People say, "I finally have time to relax." Then immediately fill every second with input. Music while walking, videos while eating, podcasts while driving, scrolling while watching shows. Silence itself starts feeling uncomfortable. And that should scare people more than stress. Because stress at least means something emotionally reached you. Numbness means less, and less reaches you at all. This is why weekends now disappear so strangely. Friday night arrives. Relief. Then suddenly it's Sunday evening. Laptop bag near the door. Laundry done. Phone still glowing. And somehow the weekend feels emotionally unfinished. Not because nothing happened, because your attention never slowed down enough to experience it fully. And this creates another hidden problem. People stop trusting simple moments. A walk feels too boring. A quiet dinner feels not enough. A normal evening feels empty without stimulation layered on top. So the brain slowly loses emotional sensitivity to ordinary life. That's the real cost. Not financial, neurological. And most people don't realize how much emotional depth they've lost until they remember older versions of themselves. When music sounded stronger, when trips felt longer, when conversations felt deeper, when food actually felt exciting, when waiting for something created real anticipation. Now everything arrives instantly. And instant access quietly destroys emotional buildup. That's why modern people consume more, while emotionally feeling less. This is also why some lower-cost experiences still feel surprisingly meaningful. Late-night conversation, simple coffee during rain, quiet drive, phone-free dinner, long walk without content playing. Because presence restores emotional contrast. And emotional contrast is what makes experiences feel alive again. Not price, not luxury, not stimulation. Presence. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are now so overstimulated. They confuse silence with emptiness. So the moment life becomes quiet, they instantly reach for more input. Phone, music, scrolling, notifications, anything to avoid mental stillness. But that stillness is exactly where emotional sensitivity begins returning. And this changes the entire conversation. Because now the goal is not, how do I upgrade my life? The better question becomes, how do I experience my life more deeply again? That is a completely different pursuit. And most people never reach it because they keep increasing stimulation while wondering why emotional meaning keeps shrinking. The scary part is, this problem looks completely normal from the outside. Good apartment, good food, good entertainment, good lifestyle. But internally, everything starts feeling temporary. Quick hit, fast fade, repeat. That cycle slowly disconnects people from emotional depth itself. And once that happens, life can look full while emotionally feeling thin. That's why this conversation matters. Because the issue is not happiness. The issue is emotional processing. Your brain never fully lands inside moments anymore. And when your brain never slows down, nothing fully lands anymore. Not the food, not the trip, not the weekend, not even success itself. So maybe the goal is not finding stronger experiences. Maybe the real goal is rebuilding sensitivity to ordinary ones. Because most people are not missing a better life. They're missing their ability to fully feel the life they already built. And most people notice that too late.